Probiotics improve the biome or the flora in there and increase resistance to neurodegenerative diseases. The microbiome disturbance is due to the food we eat, too many food preservers. Okay, that's the main reason. Chlorinated water, antibiotics are small in comparison to food preservers. The main reason of dysbiosis for most people is food preservers. Gut organisms contain 99% of the genetic material in our bodies. And because there's so many more bacteria in our gut than there are cells in the rest of our body, it is a DNA store. It influences the brain. Antibiotics and over-hygiene. People with the greatest diversity of the biome have the lowest incidence of Alzheimer's. So, important here, keep the gut flora right. Don't forget to check probiotics with people. Some people definitely respond to a multiple much better than a single. Some people have a problem with singles. You know, maybe they've had antibiotics and they need to take acidophilus or bifidus. But a lot of people just strengthen to all of them or none but the multiple, in which case use the smart probiotic is the answer. Particularly if they've had gram-negative bacteria like Clostridium. Propionic acid we've mentioned there. There's the major ones that we do: Bifidus, Acidophilus, Bulgaricus, Casei, Plantarium, Rhamnosus and Thermophilus. Present point, I like this point. This is somewhere where you might find, have we got somebody who's got a bit of a funny gut? Yes, okay, down you come. This is the point I find is most useful for probiotics. So what you do is again, this is just in isolation. You think, well, where do probiotics show? And you just pull your knee to your shoulder, and it's just inferior to the umbilicus. About 2 centimetres, in other words. Now don't push, just touch, about 2 centimetres below the umbilicus. Okay, so we're just touching. Now you put a fairly firm pressure into there, so you're really going right into the small intestine, and there she goes. Okay, have you got a smart probiotic? So if you want to test a probiotic for yourself, that's where you therapy localise. It's not just touch, you've got to touch and then press firmly in there. So the smart probiotic there strengthens a trait. So give me just acidophilus. The most common ones are acidophilus, of course. Push. Now, bifidus. So we could work our way through. We'll just do bifidus as well because they're the common.
Those are the ones I take.
They're the ones you take, yeah. Okay. So I think she's a case where she needs probably the smart one with a combination of all of them is the better one. Right? So remember, don't just test. Because the gut is not altogether read in the brain. So when you do your neurological testing things, the brain doesn't really know what's going on inside the hollow tube there. You know, that's its own domain, isn't it? The biome is a different story altogether. So you've got to actually get in there, and that seems to be the best place. It's not just touching that point, you've got to actually press in it, so you're right into the bed of the small intestine there. And this is again interesting. A few of us have been chatting about this. Many people have experienced the astonishing clarity of mind that often comes to demented elderly people just before they pass on. This is known as terminal lucidity. There is no scientific explanation. So if your demented patient or person that you're interested in suddenly becomes very lucid, they're on their way. Okay? Which is really interesting because it means they've never lost the memory. You know, you think they have, but never underestimate that the person doesn't register everything you're saying to them. Just like a coma patient, but they can't communicate back because the network's there for the retrieving. But it's all gone in. Everything is recorded. Okay, you may rue the day that you said something about your granny or something. Okay. Right, stages in healing. So glial cells make up 80% of the brain. Their main function is to detoxify. These are like the padding in the brain to protect the neurons. 80%, 85% of all the cells in the brain are glial cells. The blood-brain barrier is there to protect the brain from toxins. And the brain has no lymphatics. It doesn't drain. Okay? It has to drain through the glial cells and is protected by the blood-brain barrier. So we need to stimulate. I told you about this, how to stimulate. And thought helps to, and we'll be looking at that in the neuromodulation, what we do. And all of these help to revive dormant neurons. So optogenetics I talked very briefly about. We'll talk about that in much more detail. and study the great man's work. Improving state to regulate modulation. We'll go through the modulation. You can read those, because I want to do an examination of a patient. And who was the patient? We said, was it you? Was it? Oh, it's you. You'd forgotten whether it was you or not. We're much. Okay, let's try you out then. Yes. We did say we would find, didn't we? Was it you? Yeah. Okay. So Jill's going to start you off. We think you were a red. So shall we start off with popping her down on the back? Okay. So if you want to test her with a red, green and blue, first of all. This really is to just find out a little bit about what's going on. Not a lot by the looks of it. Okay. So keep going. So if you don't weaken to what you think they weaken, test whatever comes up. So she's weakening to green. She doesn't look like green. She's 5'6.5". She's got long, thin fingers, and she's got the build of a red. She's coming in as a hybrid. Right, so she's a bit of this and a bit of that. A bit of the other. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll try her. Is she red? Yes. So she's red on the left, green on the right. Is that right? Okay. So she's a hybrid. So what we've got to do is to take those off, and now we're going to therapy localize her on the right, greater wing of the sphenoid, to the left. So we're asking her in reference to the right subconscious, how do you like your left one? Oh, doesn't like it at all. Okay, and then reverse it around the other way. Now you've done that, right to left, now do left to right. Yes, but now do it around the other way, just to show you. Now this is interesting because we've got to go for the one which went weak, because that's the reference. So touch on the right to the left, and now zap her. We do it with the laser, shall we? High energy laser. Right. So she's going to have 1 minute. Okay. Now while she's chatting about that, you chat to the patient and tell them all about the wonders of the umbilicus. Now, I'm going to ask her a question. I'm probably totally wrong here. Are you left-handed? No, she's right-handed. She's really confused, right? Because she's going from right to left, which is very unusual in a right-handed person. Most people it's left to right, okay? So there's something really screwed her up. She's having a battle between her right hemisphere and her left, as opposed to the left to the right. We won't ask her to explain it because it's subconscious. She won't know the answer. It's memories here. So what we're hoping is at the end of the 1 minute with the mirror on light, that she will be able to touch the right to the left, left to right without going weak, which is normal. Then the amazing thing is she should weaken to the colour that she should have done so in the first place. It doesn't matter if you do more than a minute, but if you do it less, it probably won't work. You'll have to go back again. Yeah, try the red. So she should now weaken to the red in the clear. Yes, so she's become who she should be, which is should be a red-red. Okay, now, okay, so if you go back onto the screen, if you will, Gary. I mean, on the that's examining a patient. Now, if we read the words of Jeff, we are a composite of multiple systems. Pay attention to the web interrelating factors. Really, really important. We're not expecting her to have one thing that's causing all the problems. Okay? This rarely occurs, that a person comes up with magnesium and that's it. You know, usually they need magnesium and an oil or something, a couple of things, change of lifestyle. So we need to know and understand about this web. So we've looked at we're looking at the markers, which we came in at the beginning, and looking at sort of what things we might test the energy pathway with and hypoxia. We've tested the strong indicator muscles. Jill actually did the cross-extensor reflexes there, tested the body type, and now we're going to challenge for a cranial fault. So the best way to hear is simply to get her to breathe in and out. So let's have her breathe in deeply. Hold it and breathe out. Right out, right out, right out, right out. Good. Okay, so she's holding her up. Breathe normally. Okay, so that's off to a good start. Okay, now this is something new. I want to show you a point which corresponds to the body clock. Now the body clock, we know everything in the body works in rhythms. And the body clock is an area, specific area of the hypothalamus. And it's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And this body clock regulates not only day and night or dark and light cycles, but it regulates all the hormones in the body and all the enzyme production in the body. So everything is regulated in cycles. We know that cortisol rises at certain times and not at other times and so on. We don't want to have a wee in the middle of the night, do we? So our kidneys go, yes. So our kidneys go to sleep during the night, you know. But our liver is very active during the night because we want to detoxify when we go fast asleep. Okay, we don't want to come awake like that. So the body works in rhythms there. So the first primary rhythm is light to dark, and this we know affects the pineal gland, but it does it through the supraoptic chiasma. So the primary circadian clock is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is a pair of distinct groups of cells in the hypothalamus, so it's on both sides. The retina of the eye contains classical photoreceptors, or rods or cones, which are used for conventional wisdom. The retina also contains specialized ganglion cells that are directly photosensitive and project directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, where they are in the attainment of the master circadian clock. These cells contain photopigment melanopsin and rhodopsin and follow a pathway called the retinohypothalamic tract. The suprachiasmatic controls the circadian rhythms, which regulate sleep, physical activity, alertness, hormone levels, body temperature, immune function, and digestive activity. Just about everything, in other words. It controls the other regulators or slave oscillators in the peripheral tissue, which exhibit their own 24-hour rhythms, but are kept in control by the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And here's the slave himself. Okay, now this is a point which is behind GV20, between GV20 and GV19, and it's right on the top of the head. It's the highest point on the head. Okay? So just have a feel on your head. You know where GV20 is. Go back from that, anything up to a few inches, 5 centimeters, and you'll find the highest point. There's usually a nice little bump on there. Okay? That is the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Now, you don't go weak to that. If you go weak to that, suspect there's a cranial fault. Okay? Because there's probably a jamming of the sagittal suture in there. So if we pop our hand up on the suprachiasmatic nucleus, okay, so we're going right on the top there, and then you test that, and test it in the clear first, that's it, because if it goes weak, we know there might be a cranial fault, okay? So then we would go in and do some work on that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go round the beginning and ending points now. She's going to hold on to that, touch that, and you're going to go around the beginning and ending points with the other hand. So start at the small intestine. One finger, please, at a time. So we're going to go around here and we're going to check. And we call this the definitive meridian. Okay? Keep going round. So we're going to go from there. If you put this up on the screen, what's that? So tell us where you're doing. Gallbladder. And you're thinking as you're doing this, small intestine was low noradrenaline. Gallbladder is low acetylcholine. Okay? Keep going. Triple warmer is low excitatory neurotransmitters. We learned those this morning, didn't we? Okay. Okay. Stomach, which is low histamine. They all have reasons. Okay. Okay. Bladder. Okay. Bladder is down there. So this will give you the what we call the definitive meridian. Oh. Okay. Right. So we found it. There's only one. Okay. And this probably is the meridian that she came into this world with. And hopefully she won't go out of this world with. Okay. So we're going to work from that one. Yeah. No, we'll stop there because it is only the one. All right. So no, you hold on. Okay. All right. So back onto the screen, please, Gary. You can let go when we say, but not before. Okay. So cranial faults, we can treat cranial faults in many different ways. We're going to go into some depth tomorrow for those people coming tomorrow in different techniques to show you. Most of you are familiar with suture jamming techniques, intermaxillaries. We'll do all those tomorrow. Now we're going to go eyes into distortion. We did a little bit of that work. It was with you. You didn't have glasses on then. You got so much better. You put your glasses on and you should have been cured. Okay. So eyes into distortion. Very useful technique because you can do this in the clear, like we did, I think, with you when we did the hypoxic one, from a positive therapy localization. So it could be on a lip or wherever, or you can do it from the primary meridian point, which is what we've done. Now, there is an order to this. And the order is going to be cranial first. Why cranial first? Because if you don't fire the brain up enough, you won't get range changes within the eye positions and other inputs. So we look at the cranium first. We did that by inspiration, expression. Now, number 2 is ATP. This is the aerobic challenge, left, right, left, right, left, right. So let's do that now. She's in weakness. Difficult one with the finger in the eye. Bladder. What does that mean? Low serotonin. Okay, so she's strong ATP, so we're away. The first thing we've got to do is AP. If she hasn't got enough energy, she's done for, isn't she? Right? There's no point in going any further if someone's tired. They're going to pick up infections, blah, 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 blah. You have a break a minute while we have a chat. Okay, so let me have a look. If you can go back on the screen, Gary. Now, we're starting here at the bottom. This is Maslow's hierarchy, isn't it? This is the hierarchy. ATP. Now, if you're low in energy, you may pick up an infection because your immune system doesn't work properly, and you become hypersensitive. Now, people who've got high histamine will show to the spleen. They've got high histamine. These are the people who are allergic. They come off gluten, they come off wheat, they come off milk, they come off this and that and the other, and they're left with Tibetan grass, and then they become allergic to that. Okay? Why? Because their histamine is bubbling up. It doesn't matter what they do, they create histamine. You've got to step back and say, hold on, there's something much more important than this. That's your allergic type of patient. And if your detoxification system doesn't work, you haven't got everything working there, you've got detoxification, you'll build up toxins, and you build up toxins because you're dehydrated. If you're dehydrated, you create toxins, don't you? Because you can't flush them out. You get weaknesses of certain muscle groups, which lead to mechanical problems, and you get those weaknesses because you're nutritionally deficient. But the ultimate cause of everything, which you can only survive 4 minutes at the most, is hypoxia. If you've got no oxygen, you're not going to bother to come even here. You've got 4 minutes, okay? But if you've got hypoxia, and you're down 5%, say, on the oxygen, you may not notice it, but you will over a period of time. You're 5% down in your efficiency, which will become accumulative in all those systems. So the ultimate physical problem with us is lack of air, lack of oxygen. But it's the cascade. What causes you to have lack of oxygen is your thinking process. And your thinking process is reflected in the very meridian that is showing as your definitive meridian, your one that you came into this world with and probably still shows. So what we've got to do with is have a come back to the top. So this is the hierarchy. The negative unconscious emotion is the cause, ultimately, because at the end of the day, we're only mind, and mind equates with energy, and then equates with the body. Then we do hypoxia, but we do hypoxia last. So the first one we're going to do is ATP, fix that, then we're going to go to infection, allergy, and fix them all. So let's see what happens. Now, we've already done her earlier, and we found that she needed zinc. She needed DNA polymerase, if you remember, and we know that zinc is a zinc-dependent enzyme, so we want to pop on her some zinc. Now, if we need the zinc, the smart zinc there, because remember we need the citrate. Bob, have you got a smart zinc capsules there? Well, we should have hundreds of them. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to, did she not, oh, yeah, thought she hadn't strengthened it. Okay, yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the zinc, smart zinc on there. Now, if you maintain the definitive point, it means it feeds back to the body clock. Okay? If that doesn't hold, don't bother to give it. Okay? Because it won't set the rhythms. This is the beauty of the body clock. If you regulate it with the body clock, you won't miss the right remedy. You could give the wrong remedy in any other department, but if it doesn't hold on that, it's not working to regulate the systems. So she's strengthened. So let's try her on one of these. This is the Is this the 30 ones, Bob? It's the standard 15s, is it? We're now doing a 15 and a 30. Have we got 30s here? Yeah, I'll put the 15s on now, but we do because so many people need a lot of zinc. Okay, did she strengthen? No. Okay, she's got a nice tummy button that we can put these in. Can you see her tummy button on there? Okay. Gary, come right in on that tummy button.
She's strong to 2.
She's strong to 2. Oh, that's a disappointment, isn't it? Only 2. Right, that's 30 milligrams of actual elemental zinc. Okay, so she's got a good mixture here of picolinate, ascorbate, and citrate. Good, 3 different really good forms. Okay, now, does she need anything else? Is that the whole lot of everything? We don't know. Let's tap her and see. So we're going to tap the supraoptic chiasma, just like resetting it. Suprachiasmatic nucleus, I mean. Okay, now test her. If she goes weak again, it means there's something else. She does. Is it still something related to energy? Cross-check her again, ATP. So this tells you whether there's something else in the energy pathway. Okay? Yes. So she needs something else, doesn't she? Okay, now go to your composites and let's see what it is. We found out she needed, we're one jump ahead, she needs DHA, doesn't she? And so test her with unsaturated fats first. Yep. So now we've jumped, because we've already done this with her, to DHA. So put DHA on her. We know that she strengthens to 3 teaspoons. She may not actually need that much. So let's leave the DHA on. We will want, because otherwise she's going to hold that glass, so we've only got 2 hands at the moment. So what we do now is we tap her again, about 20, 30 times. Give it a good tap. Don't mess around with it. Okay? Okay? It's just whether she goes weak. Yes. Okay? Is it energy still? Is there another thing in that department? So remember what it was, what we did is we went into the mitochondria with her. It's still something? Okay. So go through your nutrients now, your composites. So we found that she needed, in the actual mitochondria itself, we tested cytochrome C, CoQ10, cardiolipin, and she strengthened to cardiolipin, didn't she? Minerals, okay. So she's got another mineral. If it's not zinc, well, she's already got zinc. Let's try magnesium, shall we? If in doubt. She is a red. Officially now. What is the primary gland for the red people? Thyroid. So always think in the back of your mind, this could be iodine. We've got a nifty iodine, which comes up a lot. You could try smart iodides. Yeah, let's see if she showed to iodine. Because, and I'll slip this bit of clinical pearl in here. Yes, okay. So now we need a glass and some. Have we got a bottle of smart iodides? So what we're going to do is we're going to give her some smart iodide. Now smart iodide is a mixture of potassium iodide and magnesium iodide, which works for a lot of people, but there are several other forms of iodide, ammonium iodide and sodium iodide. And you get these in kelp. You know kelp? Or sea vegetables, we call it. Okay, that's mainly the sodium. And in stinging nettles, you get ammonium chloride. So that gives you 4 different types of ammonium iodide, not chloride, sorry. So by mixing potassium iodide and magnesium iodide in a base of kelp and nettle leaf, you're getting 4 different types. So I hold that for you? How many was that?
1.
What, 1 squirt?
Yes.
Oh, okay. This is quite strong, so don't go crazy with it. Okay, give her 2, right. There's a lot of iodine in there. 2, okay, so she should be all right. Did you have the iodine on?
I did actually.
Okay, so let's do it again. Yeah. Make sure you got that. Yeah, okay, so slip that one back on now. You really know, just test she's nice and strong. You'll know you've had iodine when you have that, because it's powerful stuff. Okay, so with iodine you want to put it into juice, really. I love that kelp mix and things. It goes lovely in scrambled egg. You know, most of my patients say, you're right, I do like that in scrambled egg. One of the things we did a gut seminar, you go ahead. That's better, isn't it? Okay, so we hope, you have a rest there a minute. 10 years ago, I think it was, I did a seminar called The Gut as a Second Brain. And we started right at the top and worked our way down. And one of the things we learned in the saliva, right at the top, was the saliva actually secretes iodine. And I was fascinated about that. Why does it secrete iodine? And then, of course, I realized that iodine is an antiseptic. Like hypochlorite, hypoiodide, hypobromide are chemicals that kill microbes and bacteria. And what do we do with our saliva is we swallow it. Now, Dr. Goodhart wrote many years ago that the person who's got thick mucus in the face, in the sinuses, is a sign of iodine deficiency. Okay? So in other words, what he was spotting is that iodine is secreted in the mucous membranes as well. Okay? So and the reason people get thick mucus is because it's infected. Okay? And it's infected with either fungal spores, bacteria, chronic up in the sinuses. So they're not producing the iodine in the saliva and the mucus. If you do and you've got adequate levels of iodide, you will have beautiful mucous membranes because bugs won't attach to it, right? And there's one particular family of bugs which has been bugging me for years, and that's parasites. Why do some people pick up parasites and others don't? And the answer is iodine. Okay? They're deficient in iodine because they're not acting as the antiseptic. Otherwise, your mucous membrane should secrete iodine right the way through your gut. I never picked this up because I never tested with the right forms of iodine. We tried seaweed extracts, we tried kelp, we tried potassium, we tried black walnut, rosemary, everything else. You've got to do a blend. And I realized then, to make a definitive iodine, you've got to have a bit of this and a bit of that to really get it to work in the different aspects. Because iodine has 3 functions in the body, and everybody says, oh, it's the thyroid and that's it. The major function otherwise is the immune system. It's a hypoiodine is a killing chemical, and it balances the estrogens in the body. It balances the estradiols to the estrans. So it's a hormone modulator. So we have 3 functions, very, very important functions of iodine. So you will find the definitive or smart iodine, as we call it, often there with red people because they're thyroid, and people with parasites. Do you ever get parasites? You have had them, yes. And sometimes they, you get over one parasite and the people get another one, and another one. Right? And some children, they do lurch from one to another, and you think, there's something missing here. And I've scraped them out, I've given them fibre, everything, spices, bile, you name it, digestive enzymes, and they still get them, And there's this subtle reason, I'm sure, is a deficiency of iodine. So we'll bear that in mind. So she didn't weaken to anything else there, which is great. We gave her a couple of good taps on the head. Okay, if you go back on the finger in the eye on the bladder, okay, and now just check once more. She's got iodine on her and DHA, hasn't she? And zinc. Yeah. Okay, right. So she's in pretty good nick now. Okay, so she's, you can take those off now. Okay, now let's do it in a totally different way. Okay, so what we've done is we found the answer to all her problems. Okay, and en route we found that she's got a problem with her energy. Her energy is actually very low. The problem is really in the mitochondria there. It's in the membrane of the mitochondria. Okay? She's got oxidative damage, which has damaged her DNA. She needs to boost up the DNA polymerase enzyme. Let's take this lot off, okay, and let's do a calibration of her energy. The other thing we found was she was weakened to malondialdehyde, wasn't she? So we knew that, okay? And we knew that the DHA sorted that one out. Okay, so on a quick basis there, you'll find that zinc is better at breakfast time. You must always, always, always take zinc with food, okay? Otherwise the patient will be on the phone to you next week saying, I've got nausea. They will get nausea if they take it before the meal. They have to take it with food, okay? That's very important. And the time to do it is usually breakfast time. Okay. Second thing is you've got iodine, do the same. Don't take iodine on an empty stomach. The stomach will go ooh like that. But the DHA is the opposite. The DHA is the evening meal. So you pop that on a spoon or a couple of spoons and swallow that down the hatch. How long should she take this? 1 month. Okay, keep her on that for 1 month because everything works in cycles and they're usually lunar cycles. So if we say a month, a calendar month, it's a little bit more because they probably don't start till tomorrow and so on. So everything works in a cycle, doesn't it? We were talking about at break time out there about the nice weather we've got. And do you know that if you say the weather forecast for tomorrow the same as today, you'll get an 80% correct rating. Okay? So if you say it's going to be sunny and dry like it is today, you'll probably be 80% right. The Met Office is only 90%, so you're pretty close to it. And what I learned from a builder when I was a student, he said, I can tell you what the weather's going to be like. And I said, how do you know? He said, I learned it in Australia when I worked out there. I said, what's that? He said, A, you say it's the same weather pattern, but he said, watch it on the quarter days of the moon. He said, whatever it is on the quarter day, which is every 7 days of the moon, it'll be like that stable for another 7 days. So if it's going to rain, it's going to rain. So this is why the old thing about if it rains on St. Swithin's Day, you're in trouble. And it will. It'll rain, it's on you. It's cycles, it's patterns. We understand now as with mathematics and things. And we are very subject to lunar cycles. You know, our waves in ourself, in our cranial respiratory motion, and the waves in the ocean and the weather patterns are lunar. That's our biggest neighbour. And so if you want to get something in on a cyclical basis, do it for a month. Okay, don't expect, you're not going to build up and change every cell membrane in your body with DHA. She's got to make that DHA. But in a month's time, hopefully, she'll be a lot better. Do you take a whole load of nutrients?
Yes. Yeah, not consistently.
Not consistently?
But I do take lots from time to time.
Okay, so let's do a challenge on that. If 100 is the best you've ever been in your life, okay, out of 100, and health being all-encompassing, emotional, physical, biochemical, right now you calibrate at. So let's go for an average of 60 out of 100, in those 60% or higher. Okay, 70 or higher. 65 or higher. Okay, 60. So she's coming in about 60, okay? So let's alter the goalposts and say, if 100 is the best you could be in your life, if all your genes were fully expressed, the good ones, if you only ate organic food and there was no stress, okay, your calibration, if that was 100 in your health, right now you calibrate in comparison to that 60% or higher. Okay, so she's no worse, right? That's good. So when she was at her best, she was at her best. Okay, does that make sense? In other words, she can't get better than what she was when she was at her best. She's not hiding, because some people come into this world and live all their life 20, 30% down on what they could be because of one reason or another. But she's never been. When she was good, she was good. Okay? She wasn't, there was nothing you missed out on, all right? So what we've got to do is to get her up to 100, because if she's at 60, so let's play a dirty trick on her, okay? So I want her, hypothetically, to remove all her supplements and not take any supplements at all for the next month. So on the 7th of April, with no supplements at all, and 100 being the best you've ever been and could be, you will calibrate at 60% or higher. At 65% or higher. She's the same. She's wasting her money. It's important, isn't it? Because she's doing a holding job, but she's not going to get any worse, but she's probably terrified to leave everything off, but instinct is telling her, I don't take it all the time, because she actually doesn't need to bother. Whatever she's doing is holding her at 60%. Okay, now put on the nutrients, one at a time. So we're hoping that for its effect, the zinc will calibrate itself at 100% for its effectivity for her to take her health upwards. So this calibrates at 100%. Okay, take that one off. Or two off. Some people have very deep umbilicus, and be careful with dropping the capsules in, because I've had to get tweezers out sometimes to get them out. It's all right with the big capsules, but with the small...
Put mine in a little dish.
Yes. I know. Okay. What's this one?
Iodide.
Iodides, okay. So iodides will calibrate at 100% for the effectivity for you. Okay, good. And the reason I know these are all going to calibrate at 100%, and the DHA, which we will use as the, you've got the smart marker there, okay? Yeah. Okay, we'll calibrate at 100% for its effectivity. So the ultimate challenge is now put all three on, and let's see what her scale goes up. The reason I know that they're going to work is because they all worked against this. So they all worked against her definitive meridian, the major one in the whole body. And if it holds on the body clock, it's going to hold anywhere. If it doesn't do anything to this, don't waste time giving it. Okay? So with the 3 nutrients you've got, iodides, the smart iodides, the zinc, smart zinc, and the DHA combination, or smart thinking, okay? Your scale of health right now calibrates at 60% or higher. Whew, she's no worse. Okay, 70% or higher, 80% or higher, 90% or higher, 100%. Good, okay. Now, that doesn't mean she's actually like that, okay, because it's got to get in there, it's got to work in all the cells. So we want to just say, in a month's time, 7th of April, by taking those nutrients, your scale of health will calibrate at, let's go for 90% or higher, 95%, ooh, 100%. Yeah, she's up to about 95. That's pretty good in 4 weeks, isn't it? Okay, so we found exactly what she needs. Now, if you do this, you'll be amazed, because there's always an emotional component. And again, the emotional component we'll deal with in the summer with neuromodulation, because this means low serotonin. And low serotonin gives you the blues. You know, you don't feel so good, you feel low, okay? And so blue is a bad colour for her, because it's the blues, okay? She needs a livening colour, which would be what? Orange or yellow, yellowy orange. It depends on the shade of blue. So we'll be doing those sort of things with individual monochromic colours in the summertime. So her major problem is low serotonin neurochemically. So what's causing the low serotonin is the emotion, or is the emotion the result of the low serotonin due to the biochemistry because she's deficient in zinc? Or has she become deficient in zinc because of the emotion? And you know, if you come from one side, you're going to say the emotion is the key bit. But it's a balance, isn't it, between the mind and the body continually there. So I think we've done very well there, or you have. So we've looked at Maslow's hierarchy, or it's not Maslow's hierarchy. So working, you notice I've gone in reverse. So we started at the bottom, not the top, okay? So we've looked at what is the important thing, what her body is up front. In other words, what it's displaying right now is the important thing. She's tired, okay? If she's tired, she's not going to be able to fight infections and everything else. So the infection person will be a person, could be again a spleen, and it could be other meridians. Allergy is definitely spleen. Toxicity would be probably liver or kidney or bladder. Dehydration, mechanical dysfunction can be any, nutritional deficiencies can be anything. Hypoxia is often the lung particularly. So you can begin to build up a picture of the sort of things. Now I'm gallbladder is my definitive meridian, and therefore I'm potentially low in acetylcholine and acetylation defects and problems, and it all depends on oils. And I need DHA, like probably a lot of you need DHA, so you know I'm taking the new oil as well. Now she's on the bladder meridian, so what I want Jill just to finish off with, or I will, whatever you want, is to test a bladder-related muscle, just to show you how the whole thing fits together.
Yeah, you do it.
Shall I do that? Okay. Now the bladder-related muscles are mostly the foot muscles. Okay. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plantar her foot. Are you zoomed in there? Okay, and roll it inversion, and she's going to move her big toe in towards the other one. This is the tibialis, but not that one. You're going to move your big toe in towards that one. So that's tibialis posterior. So there's push in, so there's no power at all in that. Okay. If we dorsiflex her foot, invert it, and bring your big toe up towards your knee, that's tibialis anterior, that's right. Plantarflex the foot, and push the foot outwards towards the screen. Yeah? That's peroneus longus. Dorsiflex the foot and push out towards the screen again, peroneus tertius. Okay, so we've got, at the moment, we've got a peroneus, a tibialis posterior muscle. Tibialis posterior goes underneath the foot like a webbing and lifts the longitudinal arch up. It holds the foot up. Now we do the same thing on this one. So push the foot here in towards the other one. Strong on this side. Big toe up towards the knee, tibialis anterior. Push your foot out towards the door that way, peroneus longus, and out again, peroneus tertius. All right? So we've got the one that we got. Do you get foot problems?
Well, it's extraordinary to say that, because I've been complaining when I go to posits that I don't feel I have any power in this leg.
You go to You go to parties? She goes to parties. Oh, I thought you said parties. Ah, Pilates.
It doesn't feel like it engages.
No,
in
it
the same
doesn't.
way
No.
at all, and I have my right foot drops over to the
Yes,
right side.
yes.
Do you know?
Oh, if I touch you on the tibialis posterior muscle, you won't half know it as well. So she'll have in there an emotional component of a trigger point, and you won't want me to treat that, I can tell you. But I'll get Brian to do that for you. You tell me where it is. Could be any of those come out. I did this with Sam the other day, didn't I, on a rhomboid. Sam nearly, you know that thing where you see on cartoons someone leaves the table? Sam left the table. As soon as we just put our hands on that particular spot in the rhomboid, and that's it. So I won't do it. I'll get Brian to do that. He's much more vicious. He was talking about a T-bar, which is a bit of wood, a T-so, to get it in to save his thumb. But there's always the association. So what Dr. Goodhart found all those years ago, the association of the meridian to the muscle, it all links in, and the emotion, the components. Fascinating, isn't it? Because how it all goes in. And then as soon as you found that definitive meridian, you can guarantee they've got problems in there. They'll always have problems in there. Okay. Well done. Oh, did you want to... Oh, what's that? Oh, right, okay. Off you go. Oh, you haven't got a microphone? VEP spray. Okay. This is a mixture. You better say what's in there.
Oh, it's the 6 aromatherapy oils. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, they can't.
It's the 6 aromatherapy oils that we found strengthen the bladder meridian. So we use this as the emotional treatment, because obviously the emotion is the top of the hierarchy of disease. So you need to treat the emotion, and this is the way we do it with aromatherapy oils. So if I show how we use it, because there's one for each meridian, so whichever definitive meridian shows, you then choose the corresponding VEP. So in Judy's case, it's bladder.
So tell us what they are.
I need my iPad for that. I can't remember all 6. So we'll smell them in a minute.
Yeah. So this is what I was saying, that neurologists are now looking at the sense of smell in different ways. That it's not so much big smells, it's subtle. This is how the brain works. The more subtle and the closer things are to try and distinguish, the greater the stimulation. The bigger it is, the less you can distinguish. If this room is covered in aerosol as a fresh air spray, you won't smell anything else, okay? But if you happen to be sitting next to a woman who's got a perfume, a subtle perfume, and the other one on the other side's got a different perfume, you can do a comparison, okay? So, and that stimulates your brain more than the big smell. So it's the subtle, small things which stimulate the brain much more than the big things. Okay? So aromatherapy is beginning to come into its own from a neurological point of view, because it's actually useful for stimulating the brain. And certain aromatherapies will stimulate the right brain and certain the left brain. So it's interesting. Has she had a spraying?
We have.
Okay. So 2 things you could do, totally non-invasive if you like, is give the spray at the end of the session and rub the trigger point. But I didn't want to rub the trigger point or do anything, because once you've done that, you've lost all your markers. We won't get anything weakness from her until probably 24 hours, till tomorrow. So leaving the patient, don't do the rubbing of the trigger point until the end. But you find the trigger point in the muscle associated with the definitive meridian, which is the one associated with the emotion.
Is there something on your website about the emotions, that the things that are associated with, like the low dopamine?
Is there something, the question is there something on our website regarding that? On our website, we've got everything really. There are, all the laminates are on there. You can download them or look at them, but they're not laminated, of course. So when you download them, they don't come downloaded, laminated. You've got to take them to a print shop, so it's quicker to actually buy them from Clive. Okay? So here you've got the colours associated with each one, with the emotion and the meridian and the neurotransmitter, and the nutrients involved with each one. Lovely chart, that. Don't go out home without one if you haven't got one. Okay? And on the back are all the neurotransmitters and their actual pathways of how they're done.